Hello, and welcome back to another installment of thebrillianttruth.com. I, of course, am Justin Carmack, and on today's agenda, the subject that I believe is the most important social issue facing our country today. Now, granted, those of you who watch often know that I know there are many huge problems facing our country. But of all of the different issues, if I could pick out just one to eradicate, it would be abortion. This isn't an opinion I've come to quickly. In fact, it hasn't even been my opinion for longer than the last 6 months or so. On a subject as touchy as abortion, or anything that inflames emotions, it is very difficult for anyone to change their mind. Once we come to our certain prejudices and biases and we allow those to form our opinions on such emotional issues, it's almost impossible for us to change our minds. But I've done it. And in this monologue today, I hope to at least make you question what you believe about abortion, because I am pretty sure you and I don't agree. So where do we start? As with all things that I look at, I search for truth first. And in abortion, it is true that you are stopping a human being from living that would otherwise live. Because it's not just a cut and dry case. It's very hard to say, yes, abortion is the right thing to do, and it's hard to say, no, abortion is not the right thing to do. You can't make either statement without some basis of truth. And since there are millions of people that believe both sides of the argument, I would say it's safe to say that the ultimate truth on the issue of abortion has not been established. So that's what I'm going to take a stab at today. How about placing yourself in another day and time? How about imagining that there's some great ill in the world? Some people believe it is horrible and needs to be stopped, and others think it's good and needs to go further. We have that today with abortion, but we've also had that at another time with another situation that at first you will disagree with, but you will see the parallels are uncanny. I'm talking about American slavery. How are slavery and abortion alike at all? How are the situations even remotely comparable? I can't take full credit for this idea. I've gotten the idea from Rick Santorum. I heard in a speech that he gave, and I ran with it. And I believe that Rick Santorum was exactly right in his opening premise, and that is, what was so wrong with slavery was that we denied personhood, even humanity, to human beings, so that some of us could further our political ends. We had justified denying that a human being was a human being, because we didn't want all the other logical steps that flow from that to be true. Well, equate that to abortion. If in any situation, because the mother was raped, because the mother's 9 years old, because the mother's father is the father of her baby, whatever. No matter how grotesque you can imagine a situation, if abortion is ever to occur, it must have justification somehow, because it is legal. We, American citizens, condone abortion today because we've not outright outlawed it. That kind of gets my ire up, because I, against my will, am part of a group of people who says it's okay to kill the most innocent human beings, defenseless. So I will take my stand against that. I've always always been against abortion, but at one time I thought during these extreme situations is where the debate ought to take place, and outside of these extremes, there ought to be no abortions. My position has changed. Now I believe there absolutely ought to be no abortions at all, ever, for two reasons. First, the word necessity. Is it ever necessary for an abortion to take place? And this is something I want you to think long and hard about before you come to your own concrete solution. Define necessity. Is it ever necessary that an abortion take place, even in the case of those extremes? Incest, rape, death of the mother, all of it. Is it necessary for an abortion to take place? The answer to that question is always no. It's never necessary. Necessary is in itself actually a relative term. Necessary to me may not be necessary to you. So let's define necessary. I define necessary in this context as to be a must. A must. So by that standard, are abortions ever necessary? Even in the most extreme situations, it's only necessary if someone else is to live. But if you believe that human life is no more or less valuable than another human life, all of a sudden necessity has gone out the window, hasn't it? It's only necessary to commit abortion if you're putting your own life ahead of that child's. Now, you may feel justified in such a position, but it's pretty hard to justify without being a hypocrite on some level. So in my opinion, just looking at the cut and dry definition of the word, abortion in and of itself can never be necessary. It can be justified. That's a different question entirely. And sometimes, especially in a morally relative universe that we live in, perhaps it can be justified. And that's where the extremes come in, and that's where the discussion ought to be, like I was saying, when was my position years ago. Justified. Let's talk about that in a minute. Is it justified to take another's life so I can live? In certain situations, I believe so. But and this is a big but. If I have created a person and the situation has changed such that now that person must die so that I can continue to live and perhaps create later. What justifies that decision? Because even in that decision, where there is a justification for the murder of the child, you're saying your life is more important than your baby's. Well, I have 4 children, and there's not one that I would choose not to die for. Let me let you in on a little personal issue. And this occurred a long time ago. My first baby. When my girlfriend told me that she was pregnant, my response to her was that, I love you. It was a lie. I did love her, but not in the way I needed to, and not the way I implied. But I absolutely was going to stay with her, because she had my baby, because I'd been with her for a couple of years, and because I did love her in some ways. Because I thought, you make your bed, you lie in it. I ended up getting married. I made oaths that I didn't break. I took vows that meant something to me. So that is my situation. When I'm 19 and my girlfriend says she's pregnant, and she and I decide that abortion is not even in the issue. We don't even mention the word. It's understood between us what's going to happen. But I find out late in the pregnancy that in an effort to let my future wife be aware of her options, as if she weren't already aware, my future mother-in-law's first suggestion, because she didn't want her daughter burdened with a child, because she didn't want her child burdened with me as a maid for whatever reason. I don't even know what the woman's reasons were, because we haven't talked about it. And even though I'm a kind of person that talks to anybody and everybody, including enemies, about anything, when I found out this bit of truth, I decided I could never look at that woman the same again, and I've hated her ever since. That's how I feel about abortion, because no matter our decisions, my girlfriend's mother wanted that child aborted. She wanted my daughter not to live in the first place. I can't think about this issue without thinking of my daughter, who would not be here if an abortionist had her way. My girlfriend's mom paid for her completely. My girlfriend was completely dependent on her mother when we met. This happened years ago.